Hello and greetings. I'm not sure whether somebody's there. It seems uh, there has been a time change, so I'm not too sure. No, actually. Good morning. So now I notice, yes, there are people. Um, Greetings, hello. This is Ayya Phalanyani from Germany. I'm happy to find somebody here. I just noticed that there has been a time change and it's 1 hour earlier for me. So I hope that people will come and join in today. I'm back. This is Ayya Phalanyani speaking from Germany, Aninja Vihara. I forgot the last 2 weeks that I had to mention that I would not be there. So 3 weeks ago, we had the last talk together. And in the meantime, I have been okay. I am still a little bit recovering, but I have been out of the monastery and taking a break. And Bhante Sudaso has kindly agreed to take over. So here I am back to answer your questions. And I remember that last when we discussed, there were questions open, but I'm very forgetful these days. And cannot remember the questions that we had open. So if you people are there, those who had the questions where we ended last, please go ahead and put them in the chat section. But I have a lot of other questions. So one question is about the meditation that we do, and it's about nibbida. Nibbida is one thing that you experience when you are in meditation retreats. And it is a thing that you usually have to experience before you become enlightened. So, nibbida jnana, the understanding, the knowledge of nibbida is very important. Nibbida means so much as how you say that in English? Disenchanted, I would say, is the best translation that comes to my mind. So we have to become disenchanted when we are on our way from a worldling to somebody who is practicing for enlightenment on whatever base or stadium of enlightenment, whether that be a stream enterer or an arahant. We all at some point need to learn about nibbida. We need to understand nibbida, disenchantment. So this disenchantment, why is it so important? Disenchantment, will help you to overcome craving, actually. Craving is a very, very difficult to loosen the grip of craving. So very, very important that we see the things as they really are. Usually we see things not as they are, but either with fascination or as we want them to be, or as we fear them to be, or we see them through the lens and through the filters of our kilesa. So once this process starts of seeing things as they really are, we will learn, we will come to understand that from what we thought they are, it's quite disappointing, and it's a process of disenchantment. We see the things as they really are. The glimmer falls off. We're no longer fascinated, and thus we stop craving. Thus, being disenchanted, we stop going for them and falling into the trap that they cause for us. So this is why it is so very important that we go through the process of disenchantment, of nibbida with everything. So what does it mean? What does disenchantment? I think I have said enough about it, what it is important for. So I think I can skip the other questions. There are, oh yeah, Richard, I think you come with the questions that we have. Probably. Let me see what Richard has. One of two. Richard asked or says, when the Buddha was a bodhisattva, he observed the dukkha, threat of aging, sickness, and death was still present even after learning the 7th jhana from the first teacher and the 8th from the second, right? He learned, most probably, it's not sure that actually he did learn the jhanas. There are some scholars who say he most probably learned some yogic things, but maybe not the jhanas. I do not exactly know, but let's assume that he learned the 7th and the 8th jhana from his teachers Kalama and Udakaramaputa. So second part of the question, how can we cultivate the right awareness to identify the remaining dukkha and blind spots that are still present as we progress along the path. Oh, Richard, what a good question. That is so difficult to see. And I think what we talked about just now, this disenchantment, is of great help here. Disenchantment is not the only thing for sure that helps us to identify the remaining dukkha and the blind spots. But remember, in many, many suttas, the Buddha asked us to see and to look out for what is the danger in things, what is the benefit, and where is the escape. So we're looking at what is the danger. The danger are our blind spots and the dukkha, the suffering. And I think one of the most important things on the way to see things as they really are is to work with great honesty in your practice. And also, I think if you have a strong resolve, so atitana, to really not give up and not be fooled before you found out how things really are. I mean, the whole process that we need to go through is to see things as they really are. That is what is the most important, to let go of suffering, to become one who is freed from suffering. And all those blind spots are in our way. They are blind spots, and because of them, we don't see things as they really are. The danger of blind spots is really, they are so much not they are so much ignorance and not knowing, not understanding, that it's really, you need to go with strong practice against your comfort zone. We all have a comfort zone that we hardly want to leave, but truth and things, as seeing things as they really are, starts really beyond the comfort zone. We need to get out of that comfort zone, because this ignorance or delusion, I think, that's it's not avijja, it's moha. So this delusion is so strong that we don't see the danger of these blind spots. And thus we are unable to see the remaining dukkha. And we always think, oh, this is not so much suffering. This is joyful. This is pleasant. When we have a nice, a nice whatever, when we sit within our comfort zone and it's nice and cozy, and we do not understand how much dukkha is remaining there and how much dukkha it is to crave that and to not see how this really is. So, yes, with great effort, with great awareness, with great concentration, and as I always say, you need to practice these both. You need to practice awareness and concentration together in order to see these things with great honesty. If you remain deluded and enjoy being deluded, there is no way out. And usually it is really that we all have this, the comfort zone. We have this not wanting to know. So sometimes I feel, even in myself, or I see it in reports, that people that we try to kind of beautify dukkha and make it look less suffering, just not to see how bad that really is. And that, I don't know, maybe the way out of it is different for each and every one of us. There's most probably not only one way. And it's not the way of the jhanas, it's rather the way of insight. So we need to practice insight, a lot of awareness, becoming aware in the present moment. We need to understand what is going on in the present moment. Each and every single present moment, that will help us to understand the remaining dukkha and the blind spots. The jhanas, even the seventh and the eighth jhana, are not as transformative as is the so-called ninth jhana. That state of meditative practice where you just dwell without Vedana and Sanya, without feeling and consciousness. So, this is really not the way out. The jhanas, I mean, they do help, of course. We need concentration to being able to bear up with what our insight are presenting us. You know, insights can be so terrible. Sometimes you have insights into your own mind, like you understand you are really an idiot. You're really an asshole still. And you thought you are such a good person already. And then you need a lot of concentration to continue practicing. And this is it, the practice with diligence, with effort, with atitan, so with the right resolve. Otherwise, we won't be able to continue. So there are, here's another question. I hope that answers your question, Richard. Bhavani, question. Which suttas are good to know the defilements of mind and to get rid of them? Well, if you ask me, all of the suttas, all of the Buddha's teaching is just for that purpose. We are all different people, and we do need different approaches. And it's not so much the suttas that you can read to get out and to get rid of your defilements. It's the practice. Read any sutta you want, and that shows you a way out of suffering, because it is a way away from our defilements. So don't get too scholarly. Become one who practices. Reading suttas is helpful, of course. We do need to study. But any sutta that you read will actually show you the way. For me, the Majjhima Nikaya number 10 and Majjhima Nikaya 118 and 119 are wonderful, great suttas which are showing you enough, really enough, that you can practice your entire life to get rid of your defilements. There are other suttas that are directly speaking about the defilements. But if you yourself sit down on a meditation cushion and look into your own heart and mind and observe your defilements at work, how are they arising? How are they ceasing? What can I do after they arose for them to cease? That is what is important. And that is nothing that you learn by reading, that you learn by doing. So I encourage you to sit down on your meditation cushion. Good evening, Ayya. If all sentient beings probably want release from suffering and enlightenment, why are only some of them called bodhisattvas? Because some of the others are not on the way yet, have not heard the Buddha's teaching. So once we are on the way to enlightenment, on whatever, at whatever state or position we are at, we could be called bodhisattvas. You know, the Buddha spoke of himself as a bodhisattva before he was the Arahant, the Samma Sambuddha. we recite that every day. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So there he calls himself, or he is called, the Arahant, the all self-enlightened, fully self-enlightened one. And before that, before he became the fully self-enlightened one, the Arahant, the Buddha, he was a bodhisattva. So once we hear about the Buddha's teaching and strive to become enlightened, have our mind set, we could say that we are on our way to enlightenment and thus bodhisattvas. This would be a Theravada view on this. The Mahayana view is slightly different. There you have to take vows. And whatever you do, you are, from the moment you start to practice the Buddha's teaching, until the very end, until you become an arahant or a fully self-enlightened, a Buddha, you will have to undergo a transformation. And this transformation for the Buddha took many, many lifetimes, eons, so many lifetimes that it fills books of Jataka stories. So, yeah. And people who have not heard of the Buddhist teaching yet and have no idea about the Buddhist teaching and freedom from suffering, those are still not bodhisattvas. I would say that would be a Theravada Buddhist take on that topic. Another question from your experience, what are some foods to avoid when we go through a time of reduced volume of food? Ooh, I'm not very much into food. I'm receiving alms food, and we eat what we get. I avoid meats, but yeah, our monastery here, Ninja Vihara in Germany, is yeah, we live on alms food. So, and I'm totally not into foods, yeah, other than having my alms bowl and receiving what we get. And we go to markets, and people come to give us us alms food. And so sorry, I can't tell you what are some foods to avoid. Expensive foods, probably. Lukas, is forcing myself to meditate a good thing? Well, force is never good, because force is harmful. In any case, force is harmful. So please do not force yourself, but develop discipline. by maybe understanding, by knowing what it is good for, why you are doing it, by understanding that meditation really helps you to become a better person, to live your life better, maybe to be closer to enlightenment or farther away from suffering. So there are reasons enough to meditate. And usually, even people who are not really into Buddhism understand why awareness and practice of meditation can be a good thing. But if you ask me, forcing yourself into meditation So please do not force yourself, but try to develop discipline and just create the habit meditating in the same way you shower your body, in the same way you brush your teeth, that you are doing the hygiene for your body. Do the hygiene for your mind. It is mental hygiene, the cleansing of the heart and mind. And it's so important. And once you see that, it's really easy to develop the habit of meditation as much in the same way you have the habit of showering and brushing your teeth. So, no, don't force, but discipline and habits. What else? Okay, I see Richard's answer, and yes, happy to. Yes. Jana. Hi, dear lovely Dhamma sister Bhikkhuni Ayya What is anatta? Please explain it for me. Thanks. Um, to explain anatta in brief, that is not an easy task. Anatta usually is translated into English as non-self, and that most times leads to a lot of confusion and misunderstanding, and people who are in meditation retreats then come, there's nothing, and everything is nothing, and this is not it. Also, sometimes anatta is translated as nothingness. This is also maybe not a very skillful translation, although I must say I don't have a better translation. But what we do need to understand in order to understand anatta better is that there is nothing within ourselves or around ourselves. There is no identity or no entity within or around ourselves that could control everything. Things are happening. There are processes going on. There is a nama, we talked about that, and a rupa. So a world that we made up because we named things, we gave things names. But these things, they just are. They do exist. Anatta is not meaning and not saying nothing exists. Of course, things exist, but most probably they do not exist So I needed to change location, and I hope the internet is more stable here. So we talked about processes. We talked about anatta. It's a very it's a thing that really, when you dare looking at it, you start to understand that which what we talked about earlier, namely that nibbida jnana. You start to become disenchanted because you understand that things are not what you think they are. They exist, of course, but they are mere processes, if you want. Processes of arising and ceasing, whether that be a thought, a feeling, something external, or anything. They all have the same characteristics of having nothing as an internal entity that you could say, this is myself, or this am I. So let me see. Venerable, thank you for a challenging question, my dear Dhamma brother. I hope this is enough talking about that. see if we have more questions. John asks, what do you think about secular Buddhism? I'm very interested in some of the philosophical concepts endorsed by Buddhism. However, I'm not really interested in the worship and veneration of the Buddha. Well, as long as you are not a monk or a nun, I think the worshipping and the veneration part is not that important, you know? It's Buddhism, my Buddhism, that the Buddhism that I learned or that I teach is not about worshipping and veneration. The veneration comes the more you see about the teachings of the Buddha, the more you understand what he was talking about, the more you start to be amazed, and you start to venerate him. And the worshipping part is, well, you know, it's important for some people because that is their access to the teaching. When your understanding is not deep and your ability to understand is not so strong, but you're still a very spiritual being and you want to understand, and you hear of Buddhism and you are caught and captivated, then you start to worship the Buddha. Even if you don't understand what he says, you understand with your heart that this is something that needs attention, and you give it your attention by worshiping the Buddha and the Dhamma. For me, there's nothing wrong doing this. It is good. It is one way of practice. Another way is sitting on the meditation cushion and trying to practice that much that you really, really see what the Buddha said. He said that the Buddha's teaching is timeless and invites everybody to come and see for themselves. So those people with sitting on a meditation cushion do the greatest worship of the Buddha and the Dhamma by sitting on a meditation cushion. There's no need to sit to light incense and candles and surround things and doing all sorts of rites and rituals. But you can, of course you can. There's nothing wrong with it. And we should stop thinking one is better than the other. There are so many ways to practice the Buddha's teaching, and none of them is better. And when we think I am better because I practice with worship and I venerate, then I'm wrong. And when I think, oh, I'm better because I don't need worship and veneration, then I'm wrong also. It's not about this. There are ways to practice the Buddhist teachings, to practice the Dhamma. And however we do, and that is good. when we do wholesomeness, when we better ourselves, and when what we do leads little by little to freedom from suffering, to the letting go of those defilements. So, what I think about secular Buddhism is not really important because that's just another opinion. I I have friends who are secular Buddhists and really are great Buddhists and have a deep understanding about the teaching and a deep practice. So I respect that. That's wonderful. And then there are other secular practitioners, secular Buddhists, who claim to get along without karma and reincarnation or rebirth or so for me that's funny because even if you do not believe in those concepts, you will still be subject to them. So even if you don't understand them or if you don't believe them, there's no way that you are not subject to your karma. It's not, these things that the Buddha taught are not subject of belief. When the Buddha spoke about these things, he said, come and see for yourself. So you practice, and one day you will see. And to understand karma really takes a long time. You need to have those abhinyas, those meditative attainments. When you see how your life is, the third eye. The one thing of the third eye is when you understand how you have been born in this life and in the former life, how you arose and ceased, and in the lives before that for eons and eons. And the second thing in understanding karma is that you see for yourself how beings arise and cease in these lives for many eons, and then you understand karma. There is no discussion about it anymore. There is no believing or whatever. So you just need to practice until you have those experiences. And as far as I understand, there are secular Buddhists who say, no, we secular Buddhists, we do not believe in karma and rebirth. But when I understand the original secular Buddhism correctly, it is not about we do not believe in it. It's more about wait and see. You don't need to believe in it when you can't. And in that sense, I would be a very secular Buddhist because there is no need to believe in anything. You just practice. And then you see. That's it. And yes, the philosophical concepts are really wonderful. They are, yeah. You can dedicate your life to them, I would not consider myself as a very religious person, for example, but I'm a nun. So it's not about religion or worshipping or whatever. It's really the practice that you do. Then we do have more. Facebook user ask, what if you don't have any environment about Buddhism around, but you are trying to practice on your own Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, the Eightfold Noble Path. Then how to remain rooted while people around you are doing all sorts of other religious ritualized and rituals and keep sending you invites to attend their rituals and ceremonies. Well, you can always be kind, but refuse to go. And you can maybe find online or whatever, if they are not in your if they are not near you, the people who are practicing Buddhism in a way that suits you, then since 2020, since the beginning of the pandemic, there are so many online groups that you certainly will find a group that suits you, that will help you to um, to be stable in your practice. And as I said, you can just be friendly and say that you are not interested in that kind of practice, and that you have a way of practice, and that you don't want to do those things. And usually it wears off after a while. So what I notice here in our monastery is that when people do not like what we do here, then they do not come back. And when they like, they come back. So keep on looking for a place or a group, and even if it's an online group, that suits you, with people who are practicing the way you would like to practice, and who can encourage you to practice in a way that you like. Oh, I think really important is that you yourself do not get annoyed, because then you are leaving your way. Then you are leaving Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. If you are annoyed with the people who are doing rituals and all sorts of things that you don't want and you don't need for your practice, but you are getting disrespectful towards them or annoyed by them, then your sila, your samadhi, and your panya hasn't come thus far. And then you maybe practice some more. Oh dear, I think we don't finish today. So, what can we do with short sequences of thoughts that keep repeating themselves time and again without ever advancing or developing? This is the thing that our mind does. That's the nature of the mind. That is because our habits, we develop that way of thinking. So you need to practice a lot of meditation, a lot. Concentration helps you to always bring back your mind to one point when it has gone astray. Then your awareness will keep your mind, will have your mind with things that are important to understand, because you need to look them through. You need to understand them and overcome them. So these thoughts that are repeating themselves are part of what we need to overcome. So what do? We observe our mind each and every single moment, and we name what is happening. When we are thinking, we say, thinking, thinking, thinking. When we are planning into the future, we're saying planning, planning, planning. When we are remembering, when we dwell in the past, we say remembering, 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 or feeling, feeling, feeling. Whatever is happening, you name it. And by naming it, that is a simple trick, but this simple trick really brings you back into the present moment. You name what is going on, and this builds up a momentum, so much so that what was going on is ceasing. And if you do that long enough, your concentration builds up enough. And by understanding and by concentration, these thoughts that keep repeating themselves will just stop. It's a natural thing. There is no trick or whatever. It's just you do the practice, name every single moment. And that, after, if you don't practice every day, several hours, I would say this can take several years, but then you're over it. Then it stops. And these things do not continue to repeat themselves. Facebook user is asking, is there any time when you practice meditation online with everyone? We do that Tuesdays in the evening, in the German evening. There has been a time change, so I'm totally confused about what time that would be. We start 6 o'clock with chanting, and afterwards, that chanting is maybe half an hour, and afterwards that would be meditation for 1 hour. And you can basically sit with us and practice for 1.5 hours. You don't need to do the chanting with us, although if you want, you can read along so that you understand the texts. But check I'm giving you an email. There. this would be one of our email addresses, and there you can ask for the link. We do not have that available, but we need you to ask for the link, because we don't want to have any trolls in our meditation sessions. What else? So, talking already 1 hour, and there are I think the next 2 questions we will keep for next week. I will write them down, and next week prepare your questions, and these 2, looking for yeah, I'll write them down and keep them for next week. Okay, you guys, I am happy that we found together after my time of confusion, and not understanding the time changes and needing to calculate what time changes into which direction. So forgive me, bear up with me, and see you next week. And Richard, yes, I am improving, but things are really still not as they could be, as they should be. Okay. Bye bye. Bless you all.